All right, moving on. We touched a little bit about it because we were talking about the NFL. Let's talk about NFL free agency. And as Joe Bellon put it, the trade that made you forget about the Julio Jones trade, the Redskins. There's nothing wrong with that trade. The Washington Redskins trade 3 first-round picks and a second-round pick this year for basically what will be Robert Griffin III. Let me start this off by saying a couple of things. Number one, the Julio Jones trade was fine. Matt Ryan sucks. That's why the trade didn't work out as well. You suck, Matt Ryan. Sorry, I can't. It's every show, people. It has to happen. It must be said for the people. Secondly, Robert Griffin III is a phenomenal quarterback. However, when you mortgage your future, remember what happened when the Saints signed Ricky Williams? You have to build around a franchise player. Now, I understand that the Redskins have some money to go out and spend in free agency, but you can't get the offensive line help you need, the defensive line help you need, re-signing LaRon Landry, bringing in an impact free agent wide receiver like Vincent Jackson. I think for the Rams, this is an awesome trade because you get to build up a team that has a lot of holes, and you inevitably one year could be picking first and second because the Redskins and the Rams are so terrible. Your thoughts, Joe?
I think you're right about that. Look, when the Falcons made the Julio Jones trade, Mike Ditka was happy because it made people stop talking about the Ricky Williams trade. The Ricky Williams trade made people stop talking about the Herschel Walker trade. And now, thank God, the RG3 trade is going to make people stop talking about Julio Jones. And don't get me wrong, I love me some Julio Jones, although someone on this podcast who isn't me wildly overstated the kind of success that Julio would have in his first year. I recall an argument.
Matt Ryan would be good.
I recall an argument that he would lead the league in receiving, and it has nothing to do with. It has less to do with Matt Ryan than it does with the fact that even fantastic rookie wide receivers don't put up those kind of numbers. But the Julio Jones trade may turn out to be a solid trade. The thing I think people need to understand, there's two things they need to understand about this RG3 trade. One of them Eric has already said, and that's that the Rams are getting a fantastic deal. If you're a Rams fan, and I'm sorry if you are, that you've suffered as much as Falcons fans have, except that you have a Super Bowl. If you're a Rams fan, you've got to think this is a fantastic move for you. If you're a Washington fan, you're probably all right with this, except that you're waiting to hear whether or not there were other bidders. That's the second thing. Did the Redskins overpay? And if you're a Washington fan, you know that Snyder has a history of overpaying for everything. So you've got to wonder whether you got snookered. Now, if there were other bidders, and Washington gave up that much because they had to in order to get RG3 after it became clear that Peyton Manning wasn't going to have any of the Washington's desire to get him, then you're okay with it because I think you're right. I'll just say this. I love RG3. I really do think he's going to have a great career, but I've been wrong before about other quarterbacks that I thought were kind of like him. I've never seen another quarterback that was like him at the level of excellence that Baylor generally had. In other words, I thought Steve McNair would turn out to be the greatest NFL quarterback ever or among the greats, and as much as he was good, he was not that. I've been wrong about several of these, what I perceived as really talented, really athletic, really accurate quarterbacks who were also mobile. None of them ever played as well at such high stakes as RG3. So if you're a Washington fan, it's not that you're so depressed. You just wonder whether or not you got snookered. And if you're a St. Louis fan, man, this is a great day for you if you handle this draft well.
Here's the question I have for you. What type of quarterback does RG3 need to be in order for him to justify this trade?
I think he needs to be in his career, and by that I mean, let's say the next 8 years, he needs to be a top 10 quarterback. Not initially, he doesn't have to be that way, for the first 2 or 3 years. But if year 4, he's still, in the low 20s, it's a bad trade. If year 4, he's risen and he's even like 12 or 11, then every Washington fan is going to be happy about that. If he turns out to be a regular top 10 quarterback, then you really feel like you've gotten a good trade. And if he can bring consistency to that position in Washington at a high level of performance, he doesn't have to be top 5. He doesn't even have to be top 8. He just has to be top top 10, maybe top 12, and you feel like and provide consistency, and he probably is worth it. Not objectively, but just within the context of Washington, because they've had so much trouble.
I personally think because of the magnitude of the trade, you're talking not one, not two, but 3 first-round draft picks. And my assumption is that the Redskins will be drafting in the top 12 next year, at least. He would have to. He has to bring them a Super Bowl, and he has to do with them relatively quick. At least get to the Super Bowl. Because think about it this way: let's just pick. I'm gonna pick randomly 3 players who were drafted not number 1 overall, but who were in the top 12. Imagine that if the St. Louis Rams had gotten a package of players that looked like this. Ready? Jake Long, Patrick Willis, and Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're going with that. Let me just for a second put on the hat of a Washington fan.
Oh my God!
And I can't believe I'm doing this because
everybody stop. Joe Bellon hates the Redskins, so the fact that he's actually putting on a fictitious Redskins hat is a moment that we should all like.
If I were wearing the Washington hat, the minute after I got done demanding that they change the mascot name for that team because it's racist and ridiculous. But anyway, if I'm a Washington fan, Eric, here's my response to your argument. You say it's a problem because we gave up all these great draft picks. As a Washington fan, I say, why is that a problem? We never do a good job with our draft picks anyway. If we make one great, you're assuming that we would take those picks that we're trading away and we would get good quality players with them. As a Washington fan, I don't have a lot of faith in my team's ability to do this. Before Arthur Blank and Thomas Dimitroff showed up, those were the kinds of arguments we made as Atlanta Falcons fans because we didn't think that our picks were worth much anyway. You know, during the Dan Reeves era, those picks were not worth anything. All we did was draft third-rate tight ends who couldn't catch. But if you're a Washington fan, you've got to say, yes, I understand your argument, but it's not like we're making great picks anyway with what we've got. You know, at least if we get RG3, we've got a good shot of him being an excellent quarterback, if not great. I don't think he has to get to the Super Bowl for them.
Here's where I would disagree with. Here's where I would disagree with the Redskins fans, and the comparison to the Julio Jones trade. The assumption about the Falcons was that they will be picking in the bottom half of the first round, where you could get an impact player, but for the most part, you're looking for someone who's going to help your team who's not a superstar. Julio Jones has superstar qualities. I think Robert Griffin has superstar qualities. But if we revisit this trade in 5 years, and let's say Robert Griffin III is about as successful as Tony Romo is, but the St. Louis Rams get for this deal a franchise left tackle, like a Joe Thomas type left tackle, a Justin Blackman or a Dez Bryant, or a Julio Jones type wide receiver, and an impact player on defense like Patrick Willis, who was a 12th pick in the draft. That's going to make this trade look extremely bad, and I just kind of feel like that's a huge price to pay for one player, in my personal opinion.
Well, I think we have to come back and revisit this trade because I want to see what the comparison is after the draft because I have a little something to say about the Tony Romo comparison. But anytime you talk about Romo, you're going to spend a long time talking about him because he's such a controversial figure. But that is my initial opinion about this. We'll see what happens on trade day. And if you're a St. Louis fan, maybe you don't have a lot of faith in your team's ability to execute this very generous package they've been given. But we'll see what happens. I mean, we should probably go back and do that exact same thing with the picks that the Falcons gave up for Julio Jones.
All right, so let's go into a little bit of actual free agents. Peyton Manning has visited now Denver, and he's also visited Arizona. The word on the street is that these are his 2 top choices. Both the Seahawks and the Titans have tried to talk to him, and apparently his people are not giving them the time of day. He has said he may or may not visit with the Miami Dolphins. What is your sense on where Peyton is going? Because I have an opinion about Peyton Manning and what's going on here.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a good sense for this because I really thought that the two players would be the Dolphins and Houston. But there's a lot of disagreement about whether or not Houston can get him and what they would do with Matt Shaw. But it seemed like, boy, if I was Peyton, I would really think hard about Houston. They've got so many weapons compared to everyone else that's in the sweepstakes. By the way, the word on the street was also that Washington was trying really hard to get him, and it was only after his people made it clear that he was not interested that they executed the trade we just talked about for the RG3 pick. I've said since the beginning of this that I thought Arizona was the place for him to go. Since this whole thing has gotten a lot more real, I've heard some arguments about why Arizona might not be where he wants to go in terms of offensive depth. I'm surprised about Denver. I cannot figure out how that makes sense. They have no offensive weapons. I mean, their lack of offensive weapons was an injustice to Tebow, and he's not exactly Peyton Manning when it comes to accuracy and ability to run a high-powered offense. But I felt like as much as I have some issues with Tebow, he was done a disservice by the fact that the Broncos had so few options. He would have been a better player if he'd had a couple of wide receivers that were not awful. So for Peyton to go there, they'd have to be making an enormous deal that involved Reggie Wayne or some other free agents, and I don't know if that's really true, and it's Denver or Arizona. Then you got to think Arizona is the leader. But I'm still kind of shocked he's not thinking about the Dolphins.
No, I'm stunned he's not thinking about the Dolphins. And I think that says a lot about the ownership in Miami as far as the Dolphins go, because they appear to just be kind of in it for the glitz and glamour and not for anything serious. The Broncos one confuses me because I am not neither Tebow fan nor apologist, but I agree that they did a piss poor job in developing offensive talent around him. Now, Demaryius Thomas is a big kid from Georgia Tech. We've seen him here a lot. He can stretch the field. The rumor is that Reggie Wayne and Peyton Manning are a package deal. But if you're Peyton Manning, don't you want to go to where on one side of the field you've got Larry Fitzgerald, on the other side of the field you've got Reggie Wayne. Apparently Dallas Clark, who is now a free agent, will go there, as will Jeff Saturday, and they'll just become the retired home of Indianapolis Colts players. But I personally would think of Miami only because even though the ownership may be a bit of a joke, but you've also got Reggie Bush, who turned out to be a real running back this year. You've got Brandon Marshall. You would then have, assuming Reggie Wayne on the opposite field. So that seems to make sense. The Broncos are set up to be a team that is built around Tebow. They have no offensive weapons to speak of, and I'm not sure if that's the place you want to go now. And again, you're in the AFC West. I mean, the NFC West, you go to Arizona, easy division to win. We saw what the 49ers did. But the NFC West is so much tougher to go through than the AFC right now, because in the NFC, you've got basically the Cowboys, run through the teams, the Giants, the Cowboys, the Eagles. You've got the Packers. You've got the Bears when Cutler is healthy. You've got the 49ers in the South. You've got the Falcons and the Saints. And I'm pretty sure I just named more teams than are available slots for you to get in to the NFC playoff race, which means I don't understand why Peyton would maybe consider Arizona, but I don't know. This seems strange to me. I think Miami makes a lot of sense. He has a home there, talent-wise. I'm really confused and befuddled by that, but Peyton Manning is, Peyton Manning, and wherever he wants to go, we'll follow. Two quick questions for you before we go to a couple other free agents. Fantasy football-wise, would you feel comfortable drafting Robert Griffin III as the number 2 quarterback?
No.
If Peyton Manning goes to the Broncos, are you drafting him as your number 1 quarterback?
No. I'm not drafting Peyton Manning as my number 1 quarterback no matter where he goes, except if he goes to Houston.
What if he went to Arizona and he has Reggie Wayne and Dallas Clark?
Nope. I mean, honestly, it depends. Our fantasy football, Eric and I are in a league together. We have a tradition of holding the draft after the first game that gets played. There's that one game that gets played early. We then have the draft the day before the first Sunday of games. Mm-hmm. In that world, I probably would think about it, but it would depend on what he was looking like in training camp. Right now, no. I have no idea if he can throw the ball in a game situation. I have no idea what his physical status is. And I don't know, man. I just don't know Arizona well enough to even tell you how their running game is, how their offensive line is.
Okay.
No.
All right, let's go to two other things real quick. Mario Williams is rumored, has been linked to pretty much every team that requires pass rushing, which is every team. There's a couple teams that stick out. We've heard Green Bay's name. We've heard the Patriots' name. We've heard a couple other, any team that has kind of like cap space. We've heard the Atlanta Falcons' name.
Please come to Atlanta, Mario. We love you.
Listen, Mario Williams, Joe Bellon will drink your bathwater if you show up.
Hey, that was you that said you drink his bathwater.
That is not a part of the podcast recording. I don't know what you're talking about. Mario Williams, let's talk about it from a Falcons perspective. We'll wrap this up with the Falcons as well. Do you imagine the Mario Williams on the Falcons next season? Are they a Super Bowl team?
Well, I don't think you can say that any team is a Super Bowl team. Those days are over. At least they're not now, because there is no dominant team. This season proved that. If Mario Williams shows up, our team gets it gets a lot better, and at that point, I think fans will be very reasonably thinking about not winning one playoff game, not winning two playoff games, but whether or not we can get to a conference championship. That's how much he would change the team. I love John Abraham. He has not been the John Abraham of old. He did not have a great season this year. If we had consistent pass rush, it would alter our team completely.
I agree. I think the alternative is John Abraham, and I don't want to see that. Been there, done that.
Nope.
Getting Mario Williams, it appears, means we will lose Lofton, and this has been a big controversy for the Atlanta Falcons down here in the South, and this will be the last topic for football for now. The Falcons tend to think that Lofton is not a 2 or 3 down linebacker, that he is a 2 down linebacker, and he is not very good in pass coverage. I kind of agree with that assessment, even though he was out there on third downs. The Falcons signed
Lofo Tutupu.
Yeah, that guy. And also they have Hakeem Dent at the linebacker right now, and they believe that they've got enough right now to do what Lofton did for the Falcons. Joe, you agree or disagree?
Well, I don't think saying that Lofton was out there on third down is an argument in favor of keeping him. We were one of the worst third down teams 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not the deep ball. It was the mid-range ball that found holes in our zone, and those kind of zone holes are almost always the fault of the linebacking core. So, and it just drove me nuts to watch this happen all the time. I could have told any Falcons fan with any football experience, could have told any team playing us that on third down, they throw to the soft parts in the mid-range of the zone and you will get a first down. That's always what happened. Mm-hmm. Now, I like Lofton a lot. I'm not sure that he was our great linebacking hope. I don't know how good Tutupu still is, but
he was in Seattle, but
how many years ago was that?
I don't know. The big hope is that Dent is the guy, that Dent can come out and he's going to be the future stud at middle linebacker for the Falcons, the lights we haven't seen since Jesse Tuggle. I don't know, but if you get Mario Williams, that solves a lot of your back end problem in terms of passing,
yep.
In terms of the secondary. It helps out a great deal. So, listen, the Falcons apparently can make the cash. There's rumors that Matt Ryan is going to restructure his contract, a la what Marks or Sanchez did for the Jets. So I look for the Falcons to make a major push. Listen, we don't have a number 1 draft pick that is well documented, and we are a team that believes that we are a Super Bowl team. So if that is the case, if we do not get Mario Williams, we will be exactly what we've always been, or at least under the Mike Smith era, a bunch of former Jaguars who are 10-6, and that's pretty much what we are.
Well, I don't even know that I care about the regular season record as long as we get into the playoffs. What we have been is a team with 0 defensive playmakers. We have playmakers on the offense. They don't necessarily always make plays, but we have playmakers on the offense. We've had 0 defensive playmakers. As much as I think that franchising Brent Grimes was a mistake, he's the only guy on defense this year that you could have said was a real playmaker.
I agree. Getting Mario Williams puts a face on the franchise in the sense of, say what you want to say about Atlanta, but Mario Williams, because of who he is, the way he looks, can be on the face of the franchise. He plays one of those premium positions, And I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. Every team that has won a Super Bowl has a player on it that makes you afraid to play them. For the Giants, you had the guys on the front line. You know, you can name them all if you want to, and even Eli Manning, who's a great quarterback in my opinion. You know, you need an elite player, and I believe Mario Williams is special. And if it requires Julius Peppers money, we pay Julius Peppers money.
Yeah, and then you put Ray Edwards back in the context that he was in when he was at his most successful, which is not the primary rusher, not the guy that gets the double teams, but the other guy. And this year he was getting the double teams because nobody really felt like Abraham was that big of a threat. Abraham still got some double teams, but you put Mario Williams in there, he gets attention and he produces, and then maybe Ray Edwards can be worth something for something close to what we paid for him.
Right. Let's go to the NBA.